Hola, how are you?
Hi, John. Where are you?
I am in world headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut at ISG. It's very exciting. Where are you?
I'm home
And
for
is
the
it
first
warm?
time. It's a little warm in London today, John. Just a little. I think in Fahrenheit, it's close to 90. And of course, no air conditioning. So if you see me pull out my nifty little fan and get a little air going, you'll understand why.
Oh my God. So global warming, maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see, right?
It's September. Right now, it's supposed to be like the most beautiful, cooling time of the year here. So things are shifting, that's for sure.
Things are shifting. Well, we've got two amazing guests, and the timing could not be more perfect because I'll be pulling out my tuxedo this evening for Women in Digital Awards in the US, which is super exciting.
Really exciting. I'm doing those in EMEA in a month. So I'm looking to you to lead the way, buddy.
Well, I'll just be an attendee, but I can't wait to see all the awards and the nominations. Super exciting. So our guests today are coming from Unisys, and it's a fantastic dynamic duo. You always talk about sales and then client management and how those two interact. And so we thought this would be a great conversation. Lisa Madion, SVP Global Client Management, and Chris Wenzel, SVP Global Sales for Unisys. Welcome to the show.
Good day.
Hey,
Welcome,
thanks for
ladies.
having us.
So we probably should kick things off with, I mean, we're talking about women in digital and our big awards night. Maybe a little bit, Chris, and then Lisa, is a little history with regards to how you found yourself in digital in such a career. I mean, you both came from Dell. Chris, I think you actually did two tours,
I did.
and now you're at Unisys. How did you find your path into the world of digital?
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Lisa?
Sure. Mine actually goes all the way back to high school and taking computer science courses. And I really just fell in love with it. And I remember sitting down with my teacher at the time saying, okay, what can I do with this? This was, I don't know, 80s. So again, it was relatively new of what was out there, programming and, Fortran and Pascal, if I really want to date myself. And she really recommended going into computer science. And so when I went to college, I chose computer engineering. So I had a little bit of electrical engineering, a little bit of computer science. So kind of dabbled down behind the scenes. My husband now has taken away my EE card as I've kind of gone into more of the leadership route. But truly, I like to say I grew up in the digital world and have watched it evolve from, these massive computers that we were using at school to where we are today, where now you can actually use, phones to do all of your work if you really wanted to. So
That's awesome, Lisa.
I came from a little bit of a different path. I had an art background and I love to be creative. I also found that I love to talk to people. And back in college, I had an opportunity to work for a startup with Tandy and never turned on a computer. Everything we did was word processing. And what a great opportunity to learn about how this technology is changing everything. And before I knew it, one role after another, I found that my skills of being a creative sales individual and meeting with people in tech, just every 18 months, something is changing, never stagnant, always moving. And I just always was intrigued at the idea of working in an industry that was continuously evolving and never sitting still. And so over the past 25, 30 years, it's just built on top of each other. And I haven't left because I've loved it every day.
Wow. Oh,
You know,
how
I
about
have
you?
I have a similar trajectory, Chris, in terms of not really thinking of it and almost stumbling my way into digital. But what made me stay was its continuous evolution. It's continually changing. I never get bored, and I'm easily bored. So it's like the perfect place for me because of that. But both of you are in sales roles, essentially, in customer facing, relationship building roles, but in very different ways. Can you tell us a little bit about how your roles differ between new business or sales and true, I'll call it complete growth, to organic or account management, where I'm sure, particularly in a company like Unisys, you do a lot of growing there as well, Lisa.
Chris, do you want to start? And then I think it'll be a good kind of
I think the evolution will work really well. So I really love that at Unisys, both Lisa and I partner together from the sales aspect, from a customer facing perspective. So in my side of the organization, our role is to meet with clients and help them understand how technology can be that enabler. But so many organizations are buying all this hardware, all this technology, and they just don't know what to do with it. And it's moving so fast. And what decisions do I make? And how do I get to the cloud? How do I repatriate back? What is this generative AI and what does it mean to my organization? So my organization comes in and our sales individuals work really tightly with our clients, alliance channels, and make sure that we understand what the client needs and then prescribe the services that'll help them have the outcomes they desire. So in essence, my organization lands the client. And then once we have a great experience with that client, we hand it over to Lisa's org.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't consider myself a seller. I truly consider myself a relationship person. So as Chris says, they go get the new acquisition, they land it, they send it over to my team. The good news is my client executives, as we call them here at Unisys, are hand in hand during that pursuit. So they're starting to build those relationships as well. So once we win that opportunity, it's not like the CE is brand new to that client. But really, the way I look at expanding or selling once we have the client is truly because of those relationships that we build. It's understanding their business and how their challenges that they're faced with, we can help solve it. So I tend to try to lead my team, not from hey, what does our portfolio say, but what's the challenge our clients have? And that's what Chris does to get us in the door. But it's like, how do you continue to expand that relationship? Bring in the innovation. What do we know, because we are changing so fast in this industry right now, that we can be ahead of what the client has or might need to be faced in 3 to 5 years, where we can be helping them on that journey. So really, to me, it's really about the relationship piece of it and expanding it.
Well, one thing I have a question on, just to lead into that again, with regards to the handoff and then the ongoing relationship, is we have data around the incumbent, and 60% of the time on the renewal, the incumbent loses partial or all of the deal, which is astonishing because Chris has spent so much time and we've spent so much energy earning that business, and then somehow it just fades away. So how does Unisys and how Chris and Lisa, how do you work together to and I don't think your stat is that stat, I'm just saying that's the average, but how do you make sure that doesn't happen? How do you renew that business, grow that business?
Yeah, so again, we actually have an outstanding renewal rate of about 95%, which is just, it's amazing in this industry. And I think it does go back to that relationship and the way that we don't take anything for granted. And, as Chris has talked about, we do have a partnership. So there'll be times that we know we might be coming up to a competitive renewal. We might decide that, I'm going to bring in one of the sales executives or people in Chris's team to actually lead that pursuit. So it's less about those walls of who owns what, of what is the best way to make sure we go win. And I think it is that relationship building, that listening. I try to really instill that in my team as well, is we need to listen more, talk less in order to be able to be ahead of the game, and building that transparency. Because I think one of the things, John, probably as well as anybody from this industry, is people mess up. We are human. So when we make mistakes, own the mistakes, but be transparent about it, because it builds that trusted advisor relationship. So I think that is one of those things that has just set us apart, the way that we run our accounts and build those relationships to keep the clients.
And I will say, I've been here 5 months now at Unisys, and really there is a partnership between the client and Unisys here. And we work very hard to not worry about, are we going to renew, but have that relationship every single day. So when the renewal does come, we're not shuffling and trying to make new promises. We really stick to the promises that we have, and we pivot when a client needs to. But from a leadership perspective, all of us roll up our sleeves and jump in on everything. Even though I'm new logo, I'm going to be this afternoon on one of Lisa's clients. It's my client as well, but her organization runs the day-to-day on it. I'm jumping in on one of the activities because it's something that I can add a tremendous amount of value. It doesn't matter if it's a new logo or not. We just make sure our clients are taken care of. And I really love that about this company.
You're jointly accountable for the outcomes that you're trying to drive, right? Which I think is probably the biggest incentive that you have, beyond just, the influence of trying to do what's right for your customers. I'm curious if you're finding that particularly post-COVID, and particularly as we're seeing delivery move into more remote, I won't say it's completely remote because it never is, that relationship and that connection and that engagement has changed and become a little different. We used to call it, because I've been an account manager for years, you walked the halls. You were able to meet new people. You were able to overhear that there was a problem that you might be able to help solve or help support. How are you finding that motion different now? Is there something that you're doing differently? Are your account managers, trying to make sure they're getting in front of your clients physically more often? How's that looking in today's state of clients who maybe even they're not in the office all the time? Is that sort of changing some of your behaviors or some of the way that you're trying to not just establish but maintain those relationships?
Yeah, Chris, do you want to go first? Do you want me to
go for it?
Okay. It's probably the biggest challenge I've seen over the last 2 years. When you go back to 2020 and the initial start of COVID and everything was remote, we all embraced Teams or, Zoom, whatever format we were using to talk to each other like this. And then we really tried to start pushing, nope, you need to go see clients again. Well, the clients weren't going back into the office. So I think it really has had to be a situation where we evolve with the clients. We have to know if they're going to be on site Tuesdays, Thursdays, then we need to be on site Tuesday, Thursdays. And really, again, understanding where they're going so that we can partner up with it. As we look at new opportunities, as the pursuits are happening, understanding, okay, well, what is the client situation? So if the sales team is telling me the clients are never in the office, okay, though that may give me a little bit more leeway of who I assign as a client executive, because I can assign anywhere and I just need them to travel from a monthly basis, quarterly basis to meet face to face. So Chris, how about the new logo side?
I'd say from a new logo, it's been and that's what makes my role so exciting. When we think about all the way from Y2K through COVID and now, return to Office 2.0, we have to meet our clients where they are, and selling in this environment is very different. I remember the days we'd show up with a dozen cupcakes, drop them off in the mailroom and just walk the halls for a client. It's not that way anymore. So we're working really diligently to partner hand in hand with marketing as well as different providers out there digitally to make sure that we're meeting our clients where they want to be and helping add value to some of the other solutions in their stack. But really coming to meetings prepared and being capable of meeting value for our clients drives the ability for us to meet them more frequently. If you show up and you're not educated on the client, they're not going to want to take another meeting. They're not going to want to drive into the office or get on a Zoom. And so we really have to work extra hard to do our homework before we meet with our clients.
It's a good point, Chris. And Ola, you commented on it, is delivery even shifts more to be remote from these, big delivery centers that clients might have had or providers might have had. That's where two key, I think, success is that account leadership team. So it's not just the CE who owns the overall relationship, but that delivery team for, they may not be able to walk the halls anymore because the client doesn't want, everybody on site, or they've changed their, return to office policy. But being able to clearly articulate things that we're seeing, challenges that the client might not even know that they have, but utilizing this new digital world we have of AI and different, analysis tools to be able to be proactive in that you have a problem, you just don't know you have a problem and how we can go solve it. So I think it really has changed everybody's mindset of how we work with clients, as well as Chris touched on something I think is key, is doing your homework. You have to be prepared for whatever situation you're walking into, whether it's virtual or face-to-face.
And education, I presume, not just on who the client is, because certainly in a delivery context, you usually do know who the client is, but recognizing what Unisys can bring to the table outside of maybe your particular delivery specialty, which again becomes a little difficult because particularly in a remote sense, when you're in a remote delivery sense, what we're seeing is the clients are on back-to-back calls and they generally want to stick to the subject. They want to get through the subject that they're talking about in that time frame, and your ability to kind of spread beyond that gets a little more difficult to achieve through the typical client executive rank only. You need to, as you said very well, Lisa, you need to spread that out to additional people. I think that's really fascinating. And I love your partnership in this way. I mean, I have seen organizations and service providers, I've worked for organizations where, the partnership was anything but a partnership. There really were silos. There really were walls in between them. There was a lot of infighting about who gets what and who really sold it. And, well, you wouldn't have sold it if it wasn't for me. And kind of there's a lot of infighting. And I sense absolutely none of that. Is there something that you're doing in terms of either behavior, incentives, influencers, like, you know, your maybe your KPIs that you're measuring that help to influence your organizations to be sure there are no walls? Or is it just, you think, mainly personality and value, culture that's driving it? Or are you using other levers to do that?
I'll start with my perspective. I think it starts with the leadership, you know, in the organization up top, and how we represent and come every day, and the type of organization we want to be a part of. Our organization knows that we are going to all own it together. We are one Unisys, and we really are there for our clients. And to have a world-class sales organization where people want to come work and play and have fun and do all the things that, you know, they want to accomplish from their dreams. But as corny as it sounds, but at the end of the day, if Lisa and I don't get along, if we don't figure out how to help service our clients and work together culturally, it's going to happen across the whole entire organization. So it really starts with us. And from day one, from the moment I interviewed with Lisa to see if I wanted to come into this organization, we clicked. And it was really awesome, because that was a concern of mine. We have to rely and trust each other, or our clients are going to see that. And so from my perspective, it's a big cultural piece. And then from a Unisys perspective, if we fight internally, we're never going to, you know, provide the type of services and sales that, you know, are expected of us. So why compete internally? Like, let's go out there and, you know, compete with everyone else and show them how amazing our company is. You, Lisa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, part of it is personalities, because again, there's sometimes that, you know, personality really, you know, fit together and you collaborate together. And I think, to Chris's point, our leadership team, and John, I know you saw it firsthand, is we actually like each other. I mean, and it seems like such a simple little thing to say, but it is transparent to the organization. You know, we spend so much of our lives at work, with our coworkers. Now it's sometimes at your home and in a box, but like, you really do have to get along. I travel with them, you know, we're in front of, you know, our associates, you're rallying the troops, and that camaraderie, that trustworthiness to pick up the phone and talk about hard topics, but you get through them and you find the best answer for Unisys, for the associates. And one of the other things I think we've done here at Unisys in the last, 12 months is we've relaunched our winning culture. And so it's really those fundamental values and of what we believe, and making sure we reintroduce that to the team. It's not like they were brand new, but it was just kind of like, let's talk about it again. And we've said it from the top down. And, you know, Chris and I, again, we may not always agree on every topic, but we always find a solution that's the right solution. And hands down, we are the first ones to say, I don't care if you get credit, I get credit. At the end of the day, we won, and we'll figure out the back end for our sellers and do the right thing by them. And we've done that, and we've got those examples.
Lisa, and it reminds me, Ola was there virtually, and I was there in person in New York a couple months ago. And frankly, that's why this show is happening. The synergy of you two being on stage together, we take notice. And we both instantly said, like, this isn't common.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very unique approach. And so you know, a lot of firms will say what you're saying, but you actually kind of exemplified it by sharing it in person. I thought that was it sounds subtle, but those are the subtleties that actually attracted us to saying, wait a minute, there's a connection point between selling and servicing and creating that combination.
And a clear alignment of culture and values, which is why I asked the question, because I presumed it was that, because I had seen you both before, but I was curious because, you know, that alignment of value did feel like it was coming, as you were saying, Lisa, very clearly from the top down. Yeah. And if you drive it that way, it gets much easier for you to generate the excitement from the bottom up to lean into that kind of value within the organization. So I think that's great.
So our CSAT scores went up during COVID, which Mike Connors, our CEO, said, well, geez, maybe our customers don't like us in person. And we already had really high scores, but, you know, they actually went up from really high. We're starting to see that drift back down to where we were before. And by the way, like, again, if it's not in the high 90s, Mike's not happy. So we really focus on this area. You know, Unisys is an expert in this area of digital work and workplace, et cetera. Are you seeing that drift with regards to people saying, yeah, we want to start to see how we get back together in person, and that's where those meaningful relationships and that score will be? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because just similar to ISG, Unisys did see we call it NPS. Our NPS scores did rise during COVID, and I think that's a result of one is how you lean into your clients during challenging times, and and it showed. We've saw a little dip, but we're back kind of to steady state, slightly above where we were pre-COVID. But and it's funny because everybody loves a number, right? Because if number tells you something, I love the comments that come out of this survey and really trying to understand what's under the covers that either we're doing really, really well and I need to make sure it is replicated across the board, or what's it telling me that I could actually go do a little bit better and continue to drive up those scores. And, I don't know that I've seen a true correlation to in-person, not in-person coming out of the NPS. What I've seen is a lot of that innovation continues to be the thing. And to me, as even when I was a client executive many, many years ago, innovation is so much in the eye of the beholder. And so as a client executive, an account executive is understanding what it means to your client. So then that way, as you're presenting, I think Oli, you touched on it, is you only have a small amount of time typically in front of your clients. You have to make the best use of it. So you need to know what's important to them. And sometimes you can throw a few nuggets out that they then grasp onto and want that further information. But it's really that conversation and listening.
That's awesome. I love it. Any funny comments that have ever come out that you kind of just chuckle at? Do you have one that you remember?
I don't have any I remember, but I always chuckle. Yes, there are some. And the great thing is, what I love about it too is they call out individuals. And those are the opportunities that they recognize. It's like that delivery person who nobody else might see, but they made an impression on a client. And I personally make sure as we go through those comments, I send notes to thank them for that. Because again, the client took the opportunity to call out that individual. So, because again, day ends hard when you're doing delivery. Typically, you're getting yelled at because something didn't happen. They're not calling IT because everything in the world is great usually. So,
unfortunately, that's true. You're usually not making that first contact because everything's going wonderfully, right? Things are going a little struggling. Well, the other thing that I think, another reason why John and I thought you would just be fascinated, it's not exactly shocking to say that it's rare to see an organization of any size have two women in such high-powered positions. And one of the things that we saw was the obvious diversity that we see at Unisys. By the way, not the first time we've seen that with Unisys, but how is that? I mean, is that something that you feel as two women in the organization and being leaders within the organization, particularly in sales, which I just have to say, we're not typically the first thing that you think of when you think of the face of sales in technology. How's that journey been for both of you? Because you've both been in similar roles that are account roles, very high caliber client executive type of roles, as well as sales roles. How is that manifested for you? And I know, Lisa, you and I have a very similar, we're very similar ages. So I remember the days when I was the only woman for the longest time, even in the room, let alone at the executive suite. That's starting to really change. Are you seeing that in your clients as well? And how is it at Unisys working with women at your level?
I'm going to start, Chris, and then I'll say I was so happy when Chris took this job because, again, to your point, yes, we are very diverse, but having that other female, partner with me was like great. Not that I don't love my male counterparts at Unisys. I'm not saying that because I do get along great with them. But you're right. I have grown up where many, many times I was the only female at that seat. And I was fortunate enough through my career that the companies I worked for really did invest in women and different programs to help women. I went through a program called Madion where I had, mentors, very specific training. I've tried to give back and bring on and mentor folks. My organization, whether it's by design or by what I look for in traits of individuals, my leadership team is 50% female. My client executives are over 35% female. My overall organization is about 40% female. So again, I think there's, unconscious bias maybe, but I do think there are traits in women that maybe Chris or I see that others wouldn't see that I think actually play fantastic in the sales world. we do tend to have that nurturing relationship type, traits, listening more, but we won't go into
What?
how we're doing that with men.
What?
I know. So, but anyways, Chris, your thoughts?
So from my perspective, over the years, when I started out in tech, I had an identity crisis. I was the only woman in a room, and so many programs that I went through, it was always trying to tool me to be like everyone else in the room. And I worked for companies like Cisco, HP, and Dell, and had the opportunity to go through a lot of the female leadership program. And I hit a point about 10 years ago, I hit this realization of, why do I have to conform to what the organization is? And why can't I bring my best talent every single day? Why don't I look for those things in diverse individuals that are benefits and bring them in and have that organization that looks like my clients? And so every time I interview with someone, I look for qualities, but some of those qualities just are inherent in some of the diverse talent we're able to bring in. And so many times people say, well, I want the resume that looks like someone who's done this for 20 years and has been exactly the same. And I saw one of the questions of, what do we look for? We look for people who listen, and we look for people who have great conversation and problem solving skills. And so one of the other things too is, as a female, quite often, we always believe it's an or. It's either Lisa or me. Well, it's not an or, it's an and. There's room for all of us at the table. And if we all work hard together to try and succeed, our organization is just going to grow, and it's just going to continue to add talent. And so when you look at Unisys, I am excited about how diverse we are. We recently won the award around the top 100 diverse companies, Forbes Women's List. I mean, we really take it every day seriously. And it's not just well, we need to hit a quota. It's, how do we bring the best talent in? And we really try to encourage women to say, hey, maybe because on the 10-point scale, you only do 3. Well, let's talk about what you do really well in those 3, and let's train you up to get to the 10 things we need you to do. So a little different than I think other organizations.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Chris. And Ola, you kind of made me think about it as well, as, having seen how this world has evolved with female at the table in the tech world, is building each other up, not tearing each other down. And I think, at least my experience, there was such a competition with women. And Chris, it's not an or, it's an and. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's like, stand up for each other, help each other, support each other. Again, maybe you don't have all 10 qualities, to Chris's point, but what do you have that's really, really good, that actually may be exactly what I'm looking for? So to me, that is truly one of the things I try to lead with as well, is like, everybody is here because we all want to succeed. Like, we're all in it together. Don't exclude. So,
well, listen, we only have a minute and a half or 2 minutes left. I want to be selfish for a second, because my daughter's a senior at Salve, and so she'll be entering the workforce. And I've got 3 amazing, talented professionals on this call here, this chat. So maybe if you have just one piece of advice for young people that are graduating college, that are women, that are entering the workforce, whether tech or non-tech, what piece of advice, and maybe Lisa and then Chris and then Ola, can I selfishly grab for you so my daughter can get some insights?
That's funny, John, because my daughter just graduated college, so I think about this often. Is honestly, it's confidence and the ability to go outside of their comfort zone, and always to believe in themselves. Because at the end of the day, your daughter obviously has a strong network behind you, but just that confidence, just to always believe you can achieve more and never settle.
Love it.
For me, it'll be trust your intuition. There's a reason you have it. You need to use it. And at any point you doubt yourself, don't let that imposter syndrome creep in. You're worthy of that job. You should be at that table. Bring your best every day.
Huge Mel Robbins fan, and she just talked about imposter syndrome. So that's interesting. I love it. Ola.
I think probably a little bit of both of those, but my common piece of advice is automatically say yes. Mm-hmm. Don't say no, just automatically. Immediately say to yourself, not why can't I do it, but what would happen if I did do it, right? And I think that part of that's confidence, but part of it is how you build your confidence. Because that's, I think, what I've done in my career is said yes when maybe my heart was saying, no way, I could never do that. But if you automatically say yes, you'll have a tendency to try things you wouldn't have known that you could try and actually get really good at.
Wow. Well, Sabrina, if you're listening, I think this is tremendous advice. And Chris and Lisa, thank you so much for being part of the show today. I think Ola and I could both say we just enjoyed the conversation, learned a lot. So thank you both.
And
Thank
really
you.
having two women like you who younger women can look up to and say, wow, maybe there is a role for me in client account management. Maybe there is a role for me in sales is so critically important. So thank you both just for being there.
Thanks for the time.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Olga, wow, what a show.
It's great, isn't it? And I love that they almost could finish each other's sentences, I think. They were careful not to, but it felt like they could do that. So I thought it was just brilliant.
Yeah, and again, listen, we've got our Women in Digital for the US tonight, and then Unisys actually has Patricia Sobera as one of the nominees for the event you'll be at and that's on October 26th. So we'll put both of those links in the show so people can find those easily.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, John. See you next time.
See you, Ola. Bye-bye. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.